Good day, everybody. You're welcome to Arugo Insights. This is Arugo Speaks. Today, we'll be talking about law. What really is law? We will look at the concept of law and make an attempt to define law. But like it is often said, if you keep like 10 different people on a dining table and ask them to give an assessment of the taste of the meal, you have almost 10 different reports. Some would say it is a bit salty. Others would say, oh, I like the saltiness of the food. Others would say it is spicy. Others would say, oh, it's just okay for me. Others would say, the food is too hot. Another would say, I like my food served hot and all of that. And so to the 10 different perspectives you get from what is the taste of the food, that is what the concept of law is all about. And so in defining the concept of law, there are different viewpoints. No single definition fits all. Law is complex and shaped by various perspectives. Today, we will look at those perspectives. We will look at first the natural school of jurisprudence. That school of jurisprudence looks at law based on universal moral rules from nature, reason, or divine sources. No wonder the leading proponents of that school of jurisprudence are Reverend Fathers like Thomas Aquinas and other conservative scholars like John Locke. Aquinas sees law as a set of rules that will reflect divine justice. John Locke looks at law as something that protects natural rights like life and property. In Nigeria, this confirmed this school of jurisprudence in the decision in Fawemi and Akilu, and then in Oguche and the Federal Republic of Nigeria, where the ECOWAS court struck down media restrictions prioritizing human rights. In Nigeria, our courts use natural law to protect rights under the 1999 Constitution, focusing on justice over strict rules. Nigerian courts no longer look at technicalities. They look at the justice of the matter rather than strict rules. That is the natural school of jurisprudence. In the natural school, law must have a minimum moral content. If the law is devoid of morality, then that law must not be obeyed. And so a law to the natural school of jurisprudence that kind of would allow or permit men to marry men or women to marry women, that law is against the natural order, because from the beginning God created them male and female. And so that's the natural school of what? Jurisprudence. They look at law as morality, a minimum set of morality that should guide humanity. We move to the second school of jurisprudence, legal positivism. They see law as a command that must be obeyed. Law is made by the authorities, that is by government, and is valid even if the law is immoral. So when they say that every mineral resource is found on Nigerian land, the moment a mineral is found, automatically the mineral belongs to government and not to the owner of the land. Ordinarily, that law, is bereft of morality, but that is the law in Nigeria. It must be obeyed. Key leaders that have popularized the idea of legal positivism, law as a command, are scholars like John Austin and Jeremy Bentham, other scholars like Hans Kelsen. John Austin sees law as a command from a ruler with punishment for disobedience. So, for the legal positivist school of jurisprudence, law is a command that must be obeyed. what is the application of this school of jurisprudence in Nigeria. In Kalu and the state, the court upheld the death penalty based on law, ignoring moral debates. In Joseph Amoshima and the state, the court enforced mandatory death penalty for a robbery following what? The law strictly. Law is a command from a higher being to a lesser being backed by what? Sanction. Nigerian courts apply these laws like criminal code strictly, showing legal positivism's focus on authority. To legal realism. Look at the word. In common parlance, someone will tell you I'm a realist, meaning I look at what is possible before I make up my mind. I don't begin to fantasize over things that are not possible. So legal realism is that aspect of the school of jurisprudence, that says that what judges do in practice, influenced by society, not by written law, is the word law. What the prophecies of what the judges will say to the law, and not the law written on paper, is the law. Who are the leading scholars of this school of jurisprudence? Great thinkers like Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes defines law to reflect social experience. Carl Lewin defined law as what the judges shape through their word decisions. In Nigeria, the courts have so much power. In a day or two on Latujin and Nigerian breweries, the court held that a legal issue not mentioned by parties showing what judges' practical rule. The court raised a legal issue, an issue not canvassed by the parties, to tell you how powerful the judges can be. You can also be in court and the judge will say, hey, learned counsel, can you address me on this issue? I want you to address me on this issue. That's how to tell you how powerful judges can make and mar. What is the relevance in Nigeria is that Nigerian adopts laws to local needs, especially in diverse cultural settings. A clear case of that is the case of Rotimi Amechi and INEC. In Rotimi Amechi and INEC, there was no case made for the return of Rotimi Amechi. But the court said, having decided all the issues, if Rotimi Amechi is not declared the governor of Rivers State and sworn in, he would have lost the benefit of the judgment they have declared. That's where a court can go out of the order to look at that. Then you look at the historical school of jurisprudence. The history of a people reflects their laws. The history of a people reflects their laws. If you go to the northern part of Nigeria, there is because of the violent clashes. If you see the way they dance, even when they are dancing and they're getting prepared to fight. The laws of a people reflect their history. The laws of a people reflect their history. Leading scholars are people like Frederick Calvon Savigny. Law evolves from tradition to modern rules, according to Henry Maid. Frederick Calvon says that the laws of a people reflect society's spirit. That is what he calls the vulges. The laws of a people reflect a society's spirit. And then a clear example of application of the historical school of jurisprudence is the decision of the Nigerian court in Ago and Ikwewibe, where the court recognized customary arbitration based on community tradition. In Oline and Obodo, the court also recognized customary arbitration as a valid traditional practice. The laws of the people reflect their history. That is it. So, looking at law from the natural to the positivist to the realist to the historical, you can see that their perspectives differ. Some looked at it from a natural angle, others looked at it from a positivist command angle, others looked at it from a realist angle. Now, the latter school has looked at law from a historical angle. we move to the Sociological School of Jurisprudence. Sociological School. The word sociological is coined from two words, socio and logos, society and study. The study of society is what that school talks about. And so, to this school of jurisprudence, they see law as a tool to promote welfare, adapting to social changes. Law is a tool for social engineering, according to Dean Roscoe Pound. Law is a tool for social good, according to Dean Roscoe Pound. And then Ugen says the law is what society practices, is a living law, is a tool for social engineering. In Imo State, the outrageous Osu caste system has been set aside by the Imo State Osu caste system abolition law of Imo State. Law is a tool for social engineering. If there were no law and having a wife is dependent on how strong you are, you would have seen how chaotic society would have been. Society would have been the survival of the fittest. But no, because of law in society, the law prescribes that for you to have a wife, you owe her a duty to seek for her consent and then get the consent of her family and then fulfill the customary requirements before she is called a wife. That's law for you, a tool for social world engineering. We move over to the Economic School of Jurisprudence. That's, to me, my favorite school of jurisprudence, because to me, law is nothing if it doesn't better the lives of people. And so, law promotes economic efficiency and fairness in courts and benefit. Leading scholars are scholars like Richard Posner and Ronald Coles, both of them scholars from the famous Chicago School of Economics. All of them see law as a tool for economic growth and development. What is their relevance? In Nigeria, in Lastra Construction and Ondo State, the court awarded damages to ensure for fair economic outcomes. The law means nothing if the economy is in shambles. So the Nigerian courts implement that. Finally, we will look at feminist jurisprudence. Feminist jurisprudence. And that's the school of jurisprudence that says the law often favors men and needs reform for gender equality. And I agree, preferably traditional customary practices in Nigeria favor men. When you want to count, when it is time to share land, women are relegated to the background. And so, that the laws favor men and there will be need for reform so that there will be what? Equality. Who are the leading scholars in this area? Catherine McKinnon, Martha Feynman, leading scholars in this school of jurisprudence. And then in Nigeria, look at the case of Mojoku and Mojoku. The court struck down a customary law denying women inheritance. Famous decision made in 1997. In UKJ and UKJ, the court upheld women's inheritance under the Nigerian Constitution. And the Nigerian Constitution provides that no man shall be discriminated against based on the circumstance of his or her birth. And so that a man, someone is a man and another is a woman from the same womb, should not mean that the one that is a woman should be discriminated against. Because the choice to be a man is a choice that was made independent of your will. They gave birth to you as a man, you didn't make it. They gave birth to the other as a woman, she didn't make it. I don't think there is any basis for discrimination. Law has no just one definition that fits it all. For the law to be properly defined, it is a function of where you're looking at from. So if you're a feminist, you look at it from the feminist angle. If you're a historian, you look at it from the historical angle. If you're a judge, you look at it from the realist angle. If you're someone who is in government in the National Assembly as president, you look at it from the legal positivism school of jurisprudence. If you're someone who is a pastor or who is a conservative person, You look at law from the natural school of jurisprudence, no one definition fits it all. That is the definition of law. Thank you for listening. We'll go to the next episode and talk about the sources of law in Nigeria.